Hi everybody, thanks for joining us for this Facebook Live tonight from our NBC4 studios. We'll see you tonight at 11, but before that I wanted to bring in Chris Anders from the ACLU because a lot has transpired over the last 48 hours. If you've been watching our coverage, if you've been seeing our stories on Facebook, then you know that there's a lot to do with the new immigration ban. You've been seeing lots of live coverage from the airports, not just our airports here locally, but airports across the country. Protests going on, people being detained. So this really all got started on Friday, late Friday evening, when the Trump administration issued this executive order and then the ACLU filed a lawsuit.
That's right.
Okay, so explain to me kind of what happened on Friday evening and then the fallout that we started seeing early Saturday morning at these airports.
Yep. Well, we kind of knew this was going to be coming because President Trump, all during his campaign, talked about a Muslim ban, right? So we knew that one way or another he was going to start working to put together this Muslim ban.
Well, the president has said he's not said that it's a Muslim ban. He has said this is an immigration ban. This is temporary, 90 days on one and 120 on another. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, we've heard
right.
that characterization of it today from President Trump.
Right.
But the reality is, all the countries targeted by this are Muslim majority countries. The president himself, when he was rolling out this executive order and signing it, said that he was creating an exception for what he said were religious minorities in these countries. The religious minorities are Christians, and he basically said, I'd like to give preference to Christians coming out of those countries. So this is exactly the opposite of what we as a country have always done. We've taken refugees, we've taken immigrants, we've taken people without regard to their religion. And that's from the very, very beginning of the country. So one of the things that we knew coming here into Friday was that there was going to be some form of Muslim targeting in this executive order. And we didn't know exactly what it looked like. We saw an order of it, a version of it that was leaked a little before it was made public. And so right away our lawyers in our legal department started analyzing it and realized that this was a order that was going to be taking effect and having an impact immediately. And so our lawyers from other organizations started heading to airports to try to go and find the families of those people who would be arriving at the airport and could very well be stopped at the airport, picked up, put right back on a plane, sent right back to the country that they had escaped.
Because we immediately started seeing the ramifications of this. This was signed Friday evening. We started seeing things start to transpire at airports across the country Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. So to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about, the executive order suspended the U.S. refugee program for 120 days and then blocked entry to citizens of 7 predominantly Muslim countries for 90 days. So last night we had a federal judge issue an emergency stay, and there was somewhat of a victory that we saw celebrations across the country. But this morning we see the Department of Homeland Security issuing a statement of its own saying we are going to enforce the Trump administration's orders. So what happens? What are we seeing now at the airports? What happened from last night to this morning?
It's total chaos. It really is. I mean, it's unbelievable that this is our government at work. So they the president signed this order. It doesn't seem like he really had anybody reviewing it outside of his political advisors in the White House. So it means that today, for example, they kept flipping back and forth onto whether green card holders who are permanent residents, people who've been here for 20, 30 years, are allowed in or not allowed in. And that's the kind of question that should have been resolved much earlier on in this process.
So I want you to explain this for people that are tuning into our Facebook Live tonight that may not know the difference. Can you explain to them, that's all right, I'll let you catch your breath and speak up a little louder for us to make sure that everybody can hear you, the difference between a green card and a visa, because we're hearing both.
Yeah, so their immigration law, there are different tiers of people who come to visit and immigrate to the United States. The green card holder is someone who basically has decided that the United States is going to be their permanent home.
Okay.
So the name is actually lawful permanent resident. That means the United States has said, this is okay, we want this person to be living in the United States, we want this person to be working towards citizenship.
Okay.
In most instances.
That is a green card.
And so
and
those
a
are green
visa.
card. And some of these people have been living here for decades. Some of these people are married to United States citizens. Some of these people have
green
lots
cards.
of families, have green cards here. Some of them have no home any place but the United States. They've been working here for decades, or they're neighbors or friends, our kids go to school together.
Okay.
That kind of thing. So
And
now,
a visa?
Now, a visa can range in all kinds of different things. So for countries that are not visa free, so most European countries, visitors can come from those countries without getting a visa, just like we can visit there just with our passport. Lots of other countries, though, they have to get a visa approved through the State Department, through DHS, and that's an official approval to travel to the United States. So these people all had official approval to come to the United States. They had already been checked. Their passport numbers, everything had already been checked, and they have been approved to visit the United States. Now the refugees is a special category of immigrants, and these are people who are fleeing terrible, horrific situations. So certainly the war in Syria is a good example. But they're refugees who are coming from all over the world, who are fleeing all kinds of horrible situations. And that's one thing where I guess I kind of want to talk a little bit about the people that we actually were representing in this case individually. And the lead person in this case against President Trump was a man who was a refugee from Iraq. He had spent over a decade of his life helping the United States military, our soldiers in Iraq.
And an interpreter.
As an interpreter, helping them with the community, helping them do outreach.
Okay.
And because of that, he was in danger of staying in Iraq. Because he helped us so much, he helped the United States, he helped soldiers so much, he was in danger. So he was coming to the United States as a refugee. He had already been vetted. He had already been really extremely vetted because the U.S. vetting system is already so onerous. And he had permission to come here. He was coming here as a refugee. So this is somebody who helped America. And he was stopped, and he was going to be, if we had not gotten this order, this emergency order, he would have been put on a plane and sent right back out of the country.
And he was released, and he was one of the interviews that, if you were watching us, if you were tuning in last night at 11, he was one of the interviews that we had last night, and very gracious.
That's right, especially for all he had just gone through.
Said that he loved this country. Explain to me, the Obama administration did something similar to this, correct, in 2011
for
like 6 months. Can you explain to me the difference? Because I think some people are saying, didn't we hear something like this happen before, but we didn't necessarily see all of the ramifications that we're seeing right now. So can you explain the two?
Yeah, so President Obama had a little bit of a slowdown in these visas and these refugees coming through. So refugees were still coming in, but there was a slowdown as they were doing more checking and double checking. But that's a very different thing than what's happening now. What's happening now is it's a complete ban. It's a complete shutoff. And
for 120 days.
For 120 days, but 120 days, if you're in danger,
right,
and especially if you've already been approved to come to the United States, so you've already told all your family, you've already told everybody that you're coming to the United States, and then you're not doing that, you're potentially in serious danger. And so I think that's part of why the judge was looking at this, saw what the law is, and there's a variety of different laws. So Congress has passed immigration laws, there's a constitution, there are international laws that apply in the refugee area, and she was looking at all these laws and said that these plaintiffs, these people had strong enough claim, and for the ACLU and bring these claims, our claims were strong enough that she would issue this emergency order and apply it nationwide.
So let me say this. This is what the Department of Homeland Security had to say via Twitter early this morning. The executive order is a first step towards reestablishing control over America's borders and national security. And tonight said, we are committed to ensuring that all individuals affected by the executive order are being provided all rights afforded under the law. President Trump issuing a statement today saying, America is a proud nation of immigrants, and we will continue to show compassion to those fleeing oppression, but we will do so while protecting our own citizens and border.
Well, I guess
part of his statement.
I mean, I guess this falls into the world of alternative facts. So they're not providing rights. They fought our going into court last night to get this order. They're objecting to orders that are being sought by other lawyers representing other
in different states.
In different states.
Right, because we're seeing that same thing happen right now at Dulles. This is a story in our NBC Washington app. A federal judge in Virginia issued a temporary restraining order for 1 week that'll block green card holders arriving at Dulles International Airport from being removed from the country. So there were something like 50 people detained at Dulles. Yep. So what does that do then? It buys them a week?
Yeah, it buys them a week, which is time for them to go for the judge.
Can they leave the airport? What happens?
I think they're basically stuck at the airport. The government, because they're in custody of the United States government, the United States government has to provide care. They have to provide food and medical care.
So they're not deported, but they can't leave the airport.
But they're not being allowed to leave the airport. One of the other parts of that particular judge's order was the judge required them to have access to lawyers, and there are lawyers who are volunteering all over the country at international airports, volunteering to represent these people who are coming in. Now, a lot of these people who are coming in, the refugees are really heart-wrenching stories. There are other people, like our Massachusetts ACLU was representing a professor, a longtime professor at the University of Massachusetts, who's here with a green card. And the professor happened to be traveling out of the country, and the order was signed as the professor is on his way back.
Trying to get back in. If you're just joining us, this is Chris Anders. He is the Deputy Director of the ACLU's Legislative Office here in Washington. If you have a question for Chris, we know that this has been a lot to unpack and try to understand over the past couple of 48 hours, I'll say. We're happy to take your questions, and Chris can answer them to the best of his abilities tonight. But again, we're talking about the immigration ban, the executive order that was put into place on Friday evening, and all of the fallout that we've then seen over the course Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
What happens next? Where does the country go? Where does the ACLU go over the coming days?
So I mean, I think a couple things. One is the most immediate problem is dealing with these individuals who are stuck at the airports, right, and stuck in these systems. Now, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security said tonight, put out a statement tonight, that it should make it easier for green card people to get out of that situation and come in. Now, that's something that should have been taken care of in the executive order from day one. But there's an effort, it seems like, for them to try to do some correcting of that problem. But the bigger problem is that there are lots of other people out there. These few hundred people are people that happen to be on planes or had just gotten on planes as this order was being signed.
All right, as this happened over the weekend.
Here. That's right. But there are other people who had all kinds of approvals as refugees, or they were overseas, but they had visas to come here, and they were planning on traveling on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, right? And then these people are being left stranded overseas. Now one of the judges in a case the ACLU brought in Massachusetts has said that at least for going into Logan Airport in Boston, that judge was putting an order on the government saying that they can't stop people that have legal permission from the United States to come into the United States from getting on planes to go to Logan Airport.
Let me mention another piece of President Trump's statement that was issued, and you can find this on Twitter and on his Facebook page before we check in with you. If you've got any questions, again, Chris is here and we'll try to answer them to the best of his abilities. The president saying, quote, "This is not about religion. This is about terror and keeping our country safe. There are over 40 different countries worldwide that are majority Muslim that are not affected by this order. We will again be issuing visas to all countries once we are sure that we have reviewed and implemented the most secure policies over the next 90 days.
Yeah, and here again, one of the real questions is these are all majority Muslim communities or countries. They only pick those. Now there's a lot of reporting going on now too as to why other countries that are majority Muslim weren't picked, and with a lot of speculation, people matching up where the Trump organization, President Trump's business that he still owns, is doing business and has tried to do business, and then it seems like those countries are not on the list. The 7 countries that are on the list are all countries where he has no business relationships.
Well, and just to remind people, the 7 countries that are included in this are Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. We have any questions, Gina?
We do have one question. Where should the volunteer attorneys go, and are they still needed, says Stephanie Weaver.
I believe the volunteer attorneys still are needed, and they are they're looking for them at international airports, and I think they've at each of the international airports they basically have set up camp. So at Dulles Airport, there's a contingent of volunteer lawyers working there, and in part one of the advantages of actually being at the airport, from what I understand, is that the families are there waiting for them, and most of these people, or in the case of refugees, a lot of times it's churches and other religious organizations that have been a part of the community ready to receive that refugee, and so they already were at the airport waiting for these people to arrive, and now they're there to try to facilitate legal representation.
I'm sure this is something that we're going to continue to see evolve, and
right.
Perhaps more specifications and clarifications like the ones that we've seen over the last 24 hours.
That's right.
So we thank you, Chris, so very much for your
Yeah,
time.
great.
I'll give you the last word if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I mean, I think that this is the kind of issue where the administration really does have to come clean with the American people on how this whole thing came about, and whether this is really something that they're planning on going forward with. And I think 2 things are coming up this week that I think are important events. One is this new Secretary of State. The Senate's going to be voting on him, Rex Tillerson, tomorrow night, and he has expressed some interest in the Muslim ban. He has not ever said where he stands on this issue, and he should have to tell senators and tell the country what he plans to do as Secretary of State. And similarly with Jeff Sessions, later in the week will be voted out of committee to be Attorney General, and what role did he have in putting this together, and how will he enforce this executive order if he does in fact become confirmed as Attorney General.
Chris Sanders, we really appreciate your time. Chris Sanders, once again, is the Deputy Director of the American Civil Liberties Union office in Washington. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for
Thanks so
joining
much.
us. And